episode of the ohmTown Daily News Show. I am Mayor Watt. That's ohmTown.com. I stream here on Twitch, and then I host it over on YouTube and podcast. So if you go over to Apple Podcasts or Google or elsewhere, really, it's being distributed everywhere that I know of. And if you find I need to provide it somewhere else, let me know. And I will extend the podcast over to that too. But I really enjoy being on Twitch and streaming live and interacting with anybody that might stumble into my chat. And welcome as an honorary citizen of ohmTown. If you were in my chat, you're automatically a citizen of ohmTown. But to become a formal citizen, you have to go over to ohmTown.com, sign up. You don't have to post anything. There are hundreds of people there since opening up ohmTown to the public. I don't advertise, so it's kind of, it's slow, but it's there for consuming news, not really chatting. That's why I do it here on Twitch, so that I can chat with people in real time. And mainly, ohmTown is all about aggregating news into these 6 categories across the top. Now, at the top, they are just icons. If you're mobile, you'll see the icons and the words, but at the bottom, you have the words as well. So the menu does exist in both forms, depending on what platform you're on. That said, I aggregate hundreds of articles a day. Depending on the news day, it could be thousands. It really depends. We're over 250,000 articles now over on ohmTown.com. But I grab a small selection of them, about 20, and I do an hour-long show and talk about the news. I give a little bit of my perspective. That's kind of part and parcel to a talk show podcast, and it again runs an hour. Not that much of a time sink, I'd say. I might shorten it. I might start doing little snippets, little cuts, and posting those as well in various places. But for the most part, just an hour. So let's get into it. Very first very first article is that in the Continuity Report channel, Spotify UK Studios head joins Wondery as head of commercial for Europe. Spotify's former head of studios for the UK and Ireland, James Cater, has joined Amazon-backed podcast outfit Wondery. Variety can reveal. Well, they can reveal it. They did reveal it. The executive is believed to be taking on the newly created role of head of commercial for Europe. Based in Berlin, Cater will report to Wondery's head of international, who's named Declan Moore. Let's click the link, take us over to it. This is an article over on Variety, written by Manori Ravandran. And you'll find Wondery podcasts on Apple, iTunes, and Amazon and Android. And I use Audible for my Amazon podcasts, and so they're all over there if you are interested in that kind of a thing. And Audible is great because that's how I consume my books. I'll be working on something and a book will be streaming at the same time. So I can arguably multitask. So I say arguably because humans don't multitask. We do a thing called fast switching. And that means our attention focuses from one thing to another. And I'm doing this because I have a monitor there, monitor there, monitor there, monitor there, monitor there. And basically, it means that your attention is just focused on one thing. What you have a focus on is the thing that your brain is dedicated on, whatever that task is. And then we can switch to something else, and our brain switches to that. And while we are working on something, our subconscious can be working on something else, or have it sitting in the background, kind of humming, requiring our attention. And so then we switch over to that. And that's kind of how it works. And it's part of our animal, I guess, history. We are hyper vigilant at times. So any little beep or whistle or crack or bunk or anything, whatever it might be, you hear something and your attention switches to it. If you see something move, your attention switches to it. And only through our force of will can we remain focused on something. Now that gets kind of thrown into a mess with other things, psychologically, sociologically. But for the most part, that is part of our animal ancestry. We remain, it's part of our fight or flight survival instincts to be hyper vigilant. So we take advantage of that and we switch really quick between different things that we are assigned to do, either by ourselves or by somebody we're working for. And there you go, way back at the beginning of this whole enterprise, me spinning up the stream and the podcast and everything else. I warned everybody that I practice this thing called associative thinking, and I stopped talking about it really. But that's really an example of it. We were talking about podcasts on Wondery via an article on Variety, and we ended up talking about fight or flight and survival instincts because of some tertiary aspect of this discussion. And so that's what associative thinking is, really. That said, let's get back to the article. This Spotify head of studios moving over to Wondery. The reasons are myriad, but what that amounts to is maybe Spotify is moving in a different direction, or they've got somebody else in mind that they are looking for now that this person has moved on. But a lot of people, myself included, like to move from project to project because it's challenging and it's interesting, and we need that kind of stimulus. And that's why I actually do this show, because every day it's 20 new articles plus whatever it is that I'm actually consuming on the other side, because I don't include every article I read in this stream. In fact, I don't read these articles until during the stream and after the stream. I choose to use these as just titles, and my reaction is the one that you are witnessing, or hearing at least, because it's both a stream in one form or another and a podcast with no video. So I would love to be able to turn this into a video podcast as well, but that's basically a stream on YouTube. Anyway, the move will support Wondery's European growth. The company, which was acquired by Amazon in December 2020, has been expanding its international footprint with more original local productions and increased territorial localizations for its slate of podcasts. And you'll keep seeing that logo, the Wondery logo. Pardon me. So let's continue on. The next article is in the Word in Tech. OpenSea's official Discord compromised in a phishing attack that stole at least $18,000 worth of NFTs. In this case, a bot made a fake announcement about OpenSea's partnering with YouTube, enticing users to click on YouTube Genesis Mint Pass link to snag one of 100 free NFTs with insane utility before they'd be gone forever, as well as a few follow-up messages. Blockchain security tracking company PeckShield tagged the URL the attackers linked as a phishing site, which is now unavailable. And at $18,000, it seems kind of a low amount for what I would probably think is a sophisticated phishing attack. So I guess they're going to count their blessings that they didn't get a much harder fish and yeet a couple $1 million worth of NFTs. Even the biggest NFT marketplace can't keep its channel safe from scammers, according to this article. And Richard Lawler is the author of this over at TheVerge.com. And let's see. I don't know of While the identity has been blocked on OpenSea's site, viewing it via etherscan.io or a competing NFT marketplace, Rarible, shows 13 NFTs were transferred to it from 5 sources around the time of the attack. They're now also reported on OpenSea for suspicious activity, and based on their prices when last sold, appear to be worth a little over $18,000. So it could have been much bigger, but it was eventually caught. It's going to be interesting. Some of these seem to be computer generated, and I'm really interested in the intellectual property aspects of this. Copyright and whatnot being what it is, it may not actually be protectable work. But let's continue on. The next article is mysterious and huge drawings discovered in secret Alabama cave. This has actually been in the news for a couple of days. Yesterday was the day that I was first introduced to this. It says a series of 2,000-year-old paintings have been located in a cave in Alabama, a beacon for researchers attempting to peer into the North American past. The images were spotted by a researcher from the University of Tennessee and colleagues in Atlanta and Sewanee in a cave in northern Alabama known as the 19th century unnamed cave, one of many whose exact whereabouts on private property have been obscured to hide it from vandals and looters. Yeah. Anyway, I won't go down that road. Mysterious images of birds, snakes, bison, human figures, and weapons were published in an article in a peer-reviewed journal, Antiquity, last week. 19th century unnamed cave is the richest of all known cave art sites in southeastern North America. If you get a little bit more precise, on a Wednesday at 2 p.m. during a rainstorm. This article is over at vice.com, and it's written by Audrey Carlton. And it has some of these pictures that are highlighted so that you can actually see them easier. My understanding is that they're not a deep black like that. They were highlighted by an artist. Let's see here, but any identification of the paintings are a product of the researcher's best guess based on similar ones nearby. And that's how a lot of things from antiquity are. We don't truly know who built or what built or how it was built or whatever. In many places, we just know that somebody came along and tagged it like that. And so it says here at the top of the article, the incredible 2,000-year-old paintings represent the largest Native American cave drawings discovered to date, but their meaning eludes researchers. Yeah, it's usually somebody trying to document something that they saw. And, or who knows, maybe there was some person out there way back that was trying to write Wicker Man. I don't know. So it'll be always interesting to see what the mental machinations are that produce some particular outcome. But North America, pretty much, all of its history is bound by this kind of limit of stuff. Some mounds exist, some geoglyphs exist, but massive things, long-term things, it seems like nothing existed prior to a certain point, and then it was these kind of art pieces in caves, whereas there is long-term entrenched history all across Europe. Seemingly everywhere except in the United States. So any digging around where things are discovered is really intriguing here in the States, because it seems like there's like a vacuum of history, and what is there is really, it's not late in history, it's early in history, so it's not 6,000, 5,000, 10,000 years old. But let's continue on. We've got a bunch of articles that we still need to go through. The next article is in Smack Talk channel, and it's Apple's Ireland subsidiary paid Apple US $24.8 billion for 2021. New filings from Apple's Irish head office show that the company's European operations earned $211.1 billion in revenue, of which it paid out $24.8 billion to its US parent. $24.8 billion. Let's click this link. It'll take us over to Apple Insider. And William Gallagher is the author of this article. And it says Apple's counts as one of Ireland's biggest companies because it funnels income from the company's subsidiaries across Europe. Traditionally, it has done so in order to benefit from Ireland's low tax rate, although it's now changing. It's also advantageous for Apple to leave money overseas that it has earned from outside the US rather than repatriating all of it. Consequently, despite its increase in revenue of 42.4% from $148.2 billion in 2020 to $211.1 billion in 2021, little of that has been sent back to Apple US. So they get taxed, and this is part of that arbitrage kind of. They make money by not moving it over to the US, wherein it would get taxed in a higher level. So they're taking the tax burden that would be in the EU. What that amounts to is up to those particular processes. I have seen so many conflicting numbers now. In the last few days, it was kind of brought to my attention by someone in my chat that Apple doesn't pay any taxes. And I still have to do some more digging into this. I can't dedicate a ton of time, really, like focus time, to try and hunt this down. But they do pay taxes. It's just such a small amount in comparison to the revenue generated. And then they send off a certain amount so that amount is taxed, but at a different rate than what is in the EU, even though it's generated in the EU. And then taxes in the United States are offset by what is generated on the other side based on the expenses that the company actually exerts to try and generate that revenue that they're talking about. So it's kind of it can be very sophisticated and very complex. And so finding an actual definitive number of what they've paid have proven that I need to find a more forthcoming source in the EU about what is actually getting paid, because the reporting that I've seen is always it's different depending on who you look at. So sometimes it's $21 million and sometimes it's $212 million. I just don't know yet who's right. So I'll have to focus some time, maybe over this weekend, and we can revisit it on Monday. That said, I still have a show tomorrow and Sunday. I do it every day, 11 o'clock. So don't take a break. The next article is over in the Daily News Show. That's this show. Just happens to be a channel on ohmTown as well. Virus found in pig heart used in human transplant. So if you had nothing to worry about before, now you have to worry about this too. Researchers trying to learn what killed the person to receive a pig heart transplant have found the organ harbored an animal virus. So let's click this link. It takes us over to ABC News. Researchers trying to learn what killed the first person to receive a pig heart transplant have found the organ harbored an animal virus. Let me pause this before it goes too far. This is an article over at ABC News written by Laura Neergaard, AP medical writer. And so it says, a Maryland man, 57-year-old David Bennett Sr., died in March, 2 months after the groundbreaking experiment transplant. University of Maryland doctors said Thursday they found an unwelcome surprise, viral DNA inside the pig heart. They did not find signs that this bug, called porcine cytomegalovirus, was causing inactive infection. But a major worry about animal to human transplants is the risk that it could introduce new kinds of infections to people. Because some viruses are latent, meaning they lurk without causing disease, it could be a hitchhiker, Dr. Bartley Griffith, the surgeon who performed Bennett's transplant, told the AP. So there you have it. But they still don't know what actually caused his demise. So it may or may not be the virus. That said, I think that we have a lot of assumptions in medicine. And one of the things that I've started doing a deeper dive into is cancers. And they're so personal that each one is unique to the person. It's just that there are certain indicators that say what type it is. And so our only solution really are things like chemo and excision of the mass, whatever it might be. And if that's done improperly, it can actually exacerbate the tumor and spread it. And so it's always a combination of removing the mass and doing chemo and other radiation therapies. And now we're getting a little bit more sophisticated in using genetically modified solutions. I'll just say that. There's various kinds of things, efforts being put forward. But one of the biggest things that I've always had a concern about is the fact that you can actually have cancerous cells floating in your bloodstream, and they can bind somewhere. And there's been research papers published about this. And then once it binds itself to some location, it can continue to grow and divide and consume in that region. And if it metastasizes, then, basically all hell breaks loose. So if a transplant is not very well prepared and there isn't something unique, like something like this sitting in there, you really don't really know. And it's not my intent to cause fear or concern. Fear. It's not my intent to cause fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD. That's not my intent. It's just to talk about this and be aware of the situation. Because truly, we are beholden to the subject matter experts in a given field for what is presented to the public. And what doctors have to do is rely on that science. And the science changes. 10 years ago, actually longer than that, it was okay to drink wine because it had health benefits. But if a person is immunocompromised, they were once told, yeah, you can drink wine, a glass a day kind of a thing. And then subsequently that has pivoted in a different direction. Now it's anecdotal because I wasn't specifically told, but it was common knowledge that it was okay to drink wine, even when you were immunocompromised. Not so anymore. So times change. That's why I do news like this, to talk about these things as the subject matter evolves. So let's keep going. The next article is over in the Daily News Show. And it is U.S. adds 428,000 jobs in April despite surging inflation. And that is continuing to increase. The surging, not employment. America's employers added 428,000 jobs in April, extending a streak of solid hiring that has defied punishing inflation, chronic supply shortages, and the Russian war against Ukraine and much higher borrowing costs. So let's click this link. It takes us over to ABC. Paul Wiseman is an AP economics writer. And everything is going up. And so it's fascinating that employers are adding jobs, but the people with the means are always going to need employees unless the system can be automated using some robotic labor. And so, regardless of Ukraine and, well, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, um, that's probably the least of concern for American businesses. But that fuel cost, that might be increased based on this. Again, I refer to the fact that fuel is, to me, the leading indicator of inflation, or rising costs in general. It is the foundation for how material gets from A to B. Regardless of what it is, it's not done on goodwill, hugs, and bubbles. It is only on fuel. So you have to get from point A to point B. So if the cost increases to the point where it puts a stranglehold on the effectiveness of business, that's when solar power, electric vehicles, etc., will drop in price or increase in price until the technology shortage is addressed. And then you'll see Tesla products go through the roof in terms of availability and how pervasive they are, because they are really one of the select few that have really viable platforms. So to me, all of this rate increases is going to lead to the demise of oil. And it can't come soon enough, because there are only a few high-level oil-producing nations, and they've got really a kind of a stranglehold on economic progress. And it's kind of like a one-hit wonder. That's the one thing that they are strategically advantaged by. And so they, on a whim, can raise the price through the roof. And some analysts are saying that it's going to continue to increase. So I don't believe for a moment that the unemployment rate is 3.6%. You can't refer to something as the Great Resignation and then still have a 3.6% unemployment rate. It's because people are bowing out of looking for jobs, and so they get discounted. They get removed from the rolls, so to speak. But it says, so down here it says, and the number of people in the labor workforce declined in April by 363,000, the first drop since September. Their exit slightly reduced the proportion of Americans who are either working or looking for work from 62.4 to 62.2. Many industries have been slowed by labor shortages. So you have jobs out there that are being hired for, and then you have people that are bowing out, yet you're still sitting around 3.6%. I just think that this is numbers being manipulated. Let's continue on. The next article is in the Daily News Show. Energy war in Europe intensifies as Russia cuts off gas supply to Poland and Bulgaria. I'm going to jump through this really quick because it really amounts to something that I've spoken of previously, but this is to let you know that it's actually taking place. Russia's move makes it clear. Pardon me, let me back up. Russia's move makes it clearer than ever that Europe needs to move quickly to reduce its reliance on Russian energy, said the head of the International Energy Agency. So this is something that I've been talking about. This is over at Common Dreams, and it's written by Jake Johnson. But it says European gas prices surged Wednesday after Russia's state-owned energy giant Gazprom cut off the supply of gas to NATO members Poland and Bulgaria, a move seen as a significant escalation of what has been dubbed a fossil fuel war between Moscow and the West. Announced 2 months into Russia's deadly assault on Ukraine, Gazprom's decision came weeks after the United States halted fossil fuel imports from Russia and vowed to help European nations end their reliance on Russian oil and gas. So we will have to monitor this as well. And with every little drip of conflict, businesses that are capable of doing this and willing to do this keep raising the prices. They get record profits, mind you, record profits to the tune of billions. So what's going to happen to these companies when we all switch to solar or wind and nuclear and geothermal and hydro? I mean, this will not continue forever. The next article is over in, I have to move on. The next article is over in Warcrafters. Kanye West once pitched Miyamoto a video game. Pardon me 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. So this is a link in chat that says Kanye West once pitched Miyamoto a video game. Former IGN journalist and current Twitch employee Zachary Ryan has shared an anecdote about an E3 meeting of minds between the two great creators, video game legend Shigeru Miyamoto and musician Kanye West. It's been known before that the meeting took place. Former Nintendo executive Reggie Fils, AIM, has mentioned it in a previous interview, but this is essentially Miyamoto's account. It should be taken with appropriate caveats, of course. Ryan's recounting an 8-year-old story here, and Miyamoto's thoughts were delivered via translation. So don't take it word by word recreation of the scene, but it's fun insight. So Ryan says in early 2016, they flew to shoot an interview with Miyamoto for Star Fox Zero. And Miyamoto yelled Kanye at the meeting and started emphatically telling a story, and his translator sprung into action. So Kanye pitched a video game to Miyamoto. Pretty interesting. Obviously, it didn't become a reality, I don't think. So this is an article over at PCGamer.com by Rich Stanton, which is basically a retelling of Zachary Ryan's story. Pardon me. And I'm not sure if it's going to say what it is. In it, you played as Kanye's late mother flying to heaven, set to a soundtrack conducted by Kanye himself. And he was shaking his head as he described it. Not like he thought it was a bad game, but more so in the way that he just sort of couldn't believe Kanye West was pitching him a video game. Funny. Okay, so anyway, the next article, I'm going to have to keep on moving. The next article is in Stock Marketeers. In a section called The Margin, Texas woman scored ancient Roman bust for $34.99 at Goodwill. The first century marble statue had been missing from Germany since World War II and will be returned, but it's on display at the San Antonio Museum of Art for now. We'll click the link. It takes us over to Market Watch, and there it is, first century marble statue next to Laura Young, who bought it at Goodwill for $35, and it turns out that it was an ancient Roman statue that's been missing since World War II. Wow. Don't make eye contact, or it might show you the location of the lost, the Ark of the Covenant, right? Apparently a savvy shopper with a good eye, Laura Young. Gosh, imagine. So it's an ancient Roman bust, and it's being held down by a seatbelt in the car by its neck. That's kind of the spot that breaks usually. Anyway, she was struck by how old and worn the statue looked, however, so she spent the next few years meeting with art history experts at the University of Texas at Austin and several auction houses across the country to see, trying to trace its origin. And then I guess they figured it out eventually. So let's see. Portrait of a man, Roman marble, late 1st century BC, early 1st century AD. Found in a Texas Goodwill. That's astonishing. Anyway, let's continue on. The next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel, probably because of the source, not because of the topic. Army special operators invited other U.S. troops and other militaries to a sniper competition, and here's who came out on top. U.S. Army Special Operations Command hosted an annual international sniper competition in March. The competition includes U.S. and foreign military snipers as well as law enforcement marksmen. Since the beginning of 2004, it's become one of the best ways to test those sharpshooter skills. So this takes us over to Business Insider, and it's written by Stavros. Oh man, I'm sorry. Atlamazoglu. Atlamazoglu. Okay, Atlamazoglu. There you go. I'm gonna stop repeating that. Anyway, sorry if I mangled your name. I really appreciate it. If you call me, let me know. Email me, send me a DM on Twitter, or send me a message in Twitch. Send me a message in YouTube, however, and let me know how it's pronounced properly. Atlamazoglu or glue. It depends, I guess, the origin of it. Atlamazoglu. So let's see, the best of the best. A U.S. SOC International Sniper Competition competitor engages in long-distance targets at a range in Fort Bragg. I don't know. The results are in. First place went to U.S. Army Special Operations Command Team. The generic name may mean it was composed of members of Delta Force, a secretive unit the Army rarely acknowledges. I don't even know what I just said because it's so top secret. Hush, hush, double hush, hush. Second place went to a team of French SAS commandos. The U.S. Army National Guard's 20th Special Forces Group took the final spot on the podium. A team of Marine Raider sniper instructors was fourth, and a team from the Commando Spieselkraft. It's basically special operations. A German Tier 1 military special operations unit came in fifth. Neat. I mean, as far as that tech goes. It's a shame it's needed, but it is what it is. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. Best Buy, known for selling TVs and smartphones, expands into beauty gadgets and patio furniture. To me, this just signals the end of Best Buy. When an organization that has a particular specialty starts going well outside of its sphere of influence, only two things. There's one of two things. It's either collapsing and trying to mitigate the losses as long as possible to hope that it's going to get traction later on. It rarely does. Or they're expanding into home goods beyond TVs and electronics and tech. And to me, I just don't see it happening. The retailer is broadening its assortment as it laps a period of high demand for electronics and sees more of consumers' dollars directed outside of the home. So we'll see what happens. If you look at the data around Best Buy, you'll find out that it has been doing well for the last few quarters, but there are always fits and starts. And it's typically somewhere around the first quarter that it shows explosive growth or year-over-year profits, but it seems to just kind of fall off. And it started falling off more and never reached its pinnacle since I think 2012 or something like that. And so it's been a decade since, based on my recollection of data about Best Buy. Now, I'm not always entrenched in Best Buy, and actually I don't like going to Best Buy. Again, that's more anecdotal, but If you look at the charts, you can see that it was kind of trending down, but lately, because of the pandemic, people have been buying just a metric ton of things. And I think that Best Buy has gotten a marginal portion of them. Um, Definitely not a great deal of sales because of the pandemic, but people were buying from Best Buy. That said, expanding into beauty gadgets and patio furniture is the antithesis of Best Buy in terms of its culture. You went in there to buy music when it was hot and electronics, and now there's so much competition online that pretty much everybody's buying it in distributed places that are a little bit more effective and more efficient at this process. And people want to go to a Best Buy to see what they're buying. Pandemic aside, the pandemic will wane further and people will return to Best Buy. But when things were outrageously priced, nobody went in. And now inflation is coming, so nobody's going in. But I think that this will remain an issue for Best Buy, and I think that its demise is on the horizon. It may take a decade because there is momentum here, brand recognition and whatnot, but Toys R Us fell, and they were a juggernaut my entire existence. But they expanded into things too. Babies R Us was broken off entirely from Toys R Us, but they shouldn't have. They should have evolved their stores to be, I don't know, more attractive, more approachable to customers, but they were stuck in the 70s. And I think Best Buy expanding instead of just focusing on what it's good at and making sure that it is reasonably priced is probably better strategy for Best Buy. Don't expand into things you don't know. Okay, so the next article is over in Smack Talk. MacBook Pro plant workers riot over China COVID lockdown. Workers at the Quanta factory in Shanghai have clashed with authorities over China's strict coronavirus measures, with hundreds of employees surging over barriers and shoving past security guards. This will never end well. That's my statement, not the article's. The 16-inch MacBook Pro Quanta. This. Let me click the link because my aggregator kind of mangled that article. So the MacBook Pro plant workers riot over China COVID lockdown article is over in Apple Insider, and it's by William Gallagher. And it says workers at the Quanta factory in Shanghai have clashed with authorities. Quanta is one of very many Apple suppliers to have been affected by the zero tolerance COVID lockdowns imposed by China authorities since April. That's most recently. So, and like I said in other episodes, they are actually bolting people into their houses. Like they're putting what amounts to wire around the door handle and then screwing it into the door frame so that you can't get out. And I just find that rather fascinating. Like it's just it's just amazing. Separately, order times for many Apple devices, including the MacBook Pro, have lengthened considerably as the supply chain is badly affected. And so China is actually forcing people to get vaccinated. They're not taking any chances, and they're trying to end this. The next article is over in the mobile channel, Selfpropelled, Endlessly Programmable Artificial Cilia. So this Cilia is how tiny organisms move. I guess that's the best way to describe it. So this is an article over at phys.org by Leah Burrows from Harvard University. It says now researchers from Harvard John A. Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences have developed a single material, multi-stimuli microarchitecture that can outmaneuver even living cilia. These programmable micron scale structures could be used for a range of applications, including soft robotics, biocompatible medical devices, and even dynamic information encryption. Wow, that would be interesting. Using a cilia structure to unlock something, so to speak. That would be fascinating. Come on, lockpicking lawyer. Do you think you can unlock my Cilia-based locking mechanism? It's talking about dynamic information encryption, and that's where my brain took it, by the way. So obviously this might have different connotation, but imagine you having to have a little Cilia key that unlocks a mechanism electromechanically. Pretty cool idea. So if you're a writer out there, you have a good idea for something that might be fascinating in your cyberpunk universe or Warhammer universe, considering what they do with bodies sometimes. The next article is Spot the Difference to help reveal Rosetta image secrets. Today, ESA and Zooniverse launched Rosetta Zoo, a citizen science project that invites volunteers to engage in a cosmic game of Spot the Difference. By browsing through pictures collected by ESA's Rosetta mission, you can help scientists figure out how a comet's surface evolves as it swings around the sun. Let's click this link. It takes us over to phys.org, and it says Rosetta spent over 2 years orbiting comet 67P Churyumov Gerasimenko. Between 2014 and 2016, the spacecraft studied the comet up close, collecting unprecedented data to unlock some of the most intriguing mysteries surrounding the formation and evolution of our solar system. Partway through Rosetta's studies, the comet approached the sun, a moment known as perihelion. Following its closest approach of about 186,000 kilometers from our star, the comet then moved away yet again. This meant that its surface was illuminated in different ways during the course of Rosetta's mission. And now you have an opportunity to go out and assist researchers. So spot the difference. Movement of a 30-meter wide boulder over a distance of around 140 meters. Oh, interesting. So it moved from one location to another on the surface of this comet as it rotated. So it needs a lot of eyes. I'm surprised that they're not using artificial intelligence to kind of filter out the noise and get to the meat and potatoes of this. Huh. Interesting. Okay. Well, let's continue on. Got 2 more articles. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. If you want to know more about that, oh my goodness, hold on a second. Let me back up 1 second. I don't think that I put the last 2 articles in chat. So there's the link to the Cilia. There is the link to the Rosetta image project, which asks you to go and check it out. And now here is where we are, which is in the Hatch Ideas channel. We are being squeezed in every direction as inflation grips small businesses. Here's how they are responding. Some 75% of small business owners are experiencing a rise in cost of their supplies, yet only 40% are increasing prices. Yeah, small businesses are. This is by Michelle Fox over at CNBC. And the Consumer Price Index, which measures the price of goods and services, increased 8.5% in March from a year ago, while the Producer Price Index, which measures prices paid by wholesalers, jumped 11.2% year over year in March. For Kate Russell, 40 years old, co-owner of Kentucky-based Hopkinsville Brewing Company, that means everything from equipment and aluminum to grain and fuel has gotten more expensive. On average, her total costs have gone up about 15 to 20%. And that will be passed on to consumers, by the way, unless they lower their margins. Now, small businesses cannot afford that because they are not only are their professional prices increasing, but their private prices are increasing. Their cost of living has increased. And they see it at multiple levels. Not only do they see their profit margin diminishing from their business enterprise, but it's diminishing on their personal side as well. So when they do their draw, if they don't draw 20% more, they're going to have to suffer 20% losses, both on the consumer side, their personal profit, and the business side. So you can imagine what this is doing to competition. If for whatever reason the business doesn't have a diaspora of incomes, you're never going to be able to compete with big businesses because they have that ability to weather the ebbs and flows of inflation. But small businesses don't. So you're going to end up collapsing the middle class even further. Something needs to be done about this, but instead of giving all of the trillions of dollars to corporate, where most of it is going to the executives because they're making hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, it doesn't really matter. Their draw outstrips most of small business simply because one person is making hundreds of millions of dollars. It's absurd the way that the society is in reference to income inequality. The disparate values between one business and another, and everybody says, well, you have to pay them, otherwise they'll go somewhere else. Okay, let's see them go somewhere else. Let's see Tim Cook go somewhere else where it's because Apple exists and is willing to pay someone $400 million a year in compensation anywhere, that Tim Cook is there. If Tim Cook said, you know what, you're not paying me enough, I'm going to go somewhere else, he's not going to get $400 million because his supply chain expertise is specifically attuned for Apple. I mean, he maximizes his profit at Apple, but if another competitor comes out of the woodwork and says, hey, I'll pay you $400 million, they better have more than $1 billion worth of sales because they're never going to be able to pay Tim Cook. How many other companies can pay somebody $400 million or $200 million or even $20 million? It's a whole lot easier to find a cheaper wage than it is to get that. And if you're going to demand that, good luck. But we give money to banks. We give money to corporations to bail them out of their risky endeavors. And it's the private citizens that are paying the price because that's where we are being harder hit that way. If a company collapses, then there are competitors that exist that take up the power vacuum. Will there be some, some aches and pains? Absolutely. Will some of the people have to go somewhere else? Absolutely. But if money went to the middle class, it would trickle up instead of this asinine idea of trickle down economics. It doesn't trickle down. It gets concentrated in the wealthy because they have the means to weather it and demand that they get paid a dramatic amount because they're seen as being the creators of jobs. There are countless creative people out there that are capable. They just need opportunity, which means that they need money. They need other people that are of like mind to spin up an enterprise and take that risk. But most people don't want to because it's too risky, or they don't have the means to because it's too expensive. We are blind to this in our policy because, again, 2008, who did we bail out? Now we're considering bailing out another person who wants to go into space, for crying out loud. That's not how it should work. We should be bailing out the people that need it, not the people that took the greatest risk and failed. Okay, so let's go on to the next article. Next article is in Mobile. Tenants tried to stop an eviction. Now they could own the building. Let's go there here. And When a new landlord bought their building in the Bronx and threatened to raise rents and kick them out, tenants banded together. They never expected how far this might get. The chance to buy their apartments for $2,500 each. So let's click the link. It takes us over to the New York Times. The article is written by Rhonda Kaysen. And it says, on a sunny afternoon in the spring of 2017, a dozen tenants from a small Bronx apartment building met in a trendy Port Morris neighborhood bar with exposed brick walls, craft beer, and funky cocktails. One of the tenants had slipped flyers under her neighbor's door a few days earlier calling for the weekend meeting. Shoving two high-top tables together and ordering sliders and wings, they huddled, trying to figure out how to deal with the new landlord who'd come in with big plans to raise rents after buying the building for $4 million. Again, somebody very wealthy with the means to acquire and then trying to recover their spend. They start raising the rates because they think that there is a margin there that they can they can increase profits and have somebody else pay their mortgage. Hey, that's great. That's great. No, go build another one. The group took the first step in a 5-year journey that would end with the landlord gone and the tenants poised to own their 21-unit building. A nonprofit organization paid the landlord $2.6 million for the property in February 2022 and plans to eventually hand it over to the tenants, who will be able to buy their apartments for $2,500 each. Over the past 5 years, only 11 rental buildings have converted to this type of equity co-op called a Housing Development Fund Corporation co-op, where tenants buy their apartments at prices set by the city and can sell them for a limited profit. In this case, the tenants made the deal happen without any funding from New York City, an even rarer victory. There are roughly 1,100 HDFC co-ops in the city, most converted decades ago, according to the city's Department of Housing Preservation and Development. That's out of 7,100 co-ops citywide, according to Aerial Property Advisors. So it's kind of like a hidden gem there. Now, this may not go for everybody, but it is what it is. So if you want to know more about this article and what's going on here and how maybe you might be my internet dropped out. So I'm going to stop right here. I'm just going to say thanks for coming. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Unfortunately, my internet didn't drop, but OBS dropped. And it's not streaming right now at all. So I'm just going to end this and I'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Thanks for coming. See you then. Bye-bye.